It's a good day to get in the center of everything, allowing everything worth a conversation, everything worth mention. Good morning and welcome to Centerpoint M45. My name is Samuel Ayara. Today on Centerpoint, we will, as always, dare to ask. We said what, where, when, and how. When we do, we will always, again, ensure that we hazard solutions, that will find preferred solutions, and that will help you live a responsible citizen who's not had to bear the brunt of issues of being abandoned in the cold. We understand what it is, especially at a time like this, to be cared for. So in our conversation today, we will find the middle ground in ensuring that you get the best of the balance you need. Centerpoint M45 is that program that reduces global and national conversations to local relevance. Today won't be any different. We'll be beginning with the newspapers and thereafter look into what has arguably become the most topical conversation in our Akwa Ibom state. That's talking about the Akwa Ibom dialogue, where the Arise agenda of Governor Umoino is looked into, is extracted by industry stakeholders and people who care more to know about, who wish to care more about how this agenda will positively affect the state. It is the making of a blueprint, of an economic blueprint that is to span 35 years. That sounds to me more like thinking about the next generation rather than the next election. So we'll be holding that conversation and how it affects Akwa Ibom people, how the people can plug into all of this and take benefits from it. Remember, you can join us if you have need to step away from your television set. You can stay on this conversation if you are following us on Facebook at AKBC Radio and TV, where this will be streamed live. Thank you so very much for being a part of our program today, and I trust that from now till the rest of the show you will have yourself a very pleasant time. Don't go away. We'll be back in a short moment.
I need the police that can respond to emergencies first.
I want the equipment I need to do my job.
I want a police that won't harass or arrest me for no just reason.
I want to be valued for my work, not feared by honest people.
I want a police that won't ask me anything for the boys.
I want a decent salary that is paid on time.
If it happen with good laws,
Proper funding,
Training.
And cooperation.
if it happen,
If it happens.
If it happens.
This is where we all belong. The place where life is beautiful. Peaceful ambience we enjoy when we live together in unity and love. It's only mine, you know. We go stand together, we go make them better. We be brothers and sisters, no matter where we be. It's only mine, you know.
right to quality broadcasting? The National Broadcasting Commission says any person, group of persons, or organization aggrieved by the content of the broadcast or the conduct of a broadcast station may lodge a complaint to the station and all right to the Director General, National Broadcasting Commission, number 20, Ibrahim Taiwo Street, Asokoro, Abuja, or send a mail via info@nbc.gov.ng. Please ensure that your complaint includes name of the broadcast station, title of the program, date and time of broadcast, and essence of the complaint. Also remember to include your name, address, telephone number, email, and append your signature. Note that your complaint must reach the NBC within 14 days of the queried broadcast. NBC, your right to quality broadcasting.
I need the police that can respond to emergencies first.
I want the equipment I need to do my job.
I want a police that won't harass or arrest me for no just reason.
I want to be valued for my work, not feared by honest people.
I want a police that won't ask me anything for the boys.
I want a decent salary that is paid on time.
If it happen with good laws,
Proper funding.
Training.
and cooperation, if it happen,
If it happens.
If it happens.
Okay, welcome back. It's still Centerpoint M45 on your darling station, AKBC channel 45. Like you already knew before we left for that short break, my name is Samuel Ayara, and in this segment of the program we will be going straight into the papers, what the national dailies say, and what is in it for us today. And when we are done with that, we now switch straight into the state of the polity, where we'll be reflecting on the Akwa Ibom dialogue, what is in it for Akwa Ibom people. I have with me a gentleman who you all would love to meet, someone that isn't a new face in the media space and recently has taken it to another level by advocating to have Akwa Ibom people lead responsible lives. He is the Reverend Osondu Aherika, the Commissioner 3 in Ethical and Attitudinal Reorientation Commission of the Akwa Ibom State Government. So welcome to Centerpoint M45, sir.
Thank you very much, Ayara. A feeling of nostalgia, you know. I have always been on Centerpoint in the days of James Edet. And maybe in the early stages when you took over and you're doing wonderfully well. Good to be here again.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Good morning, Akwa Ibom. Good morning, Nigeria.
Okay, like you already know, this session is streamed live on our Facebook page, AKBC Radio and TV. I'm sure if you have need to step away from your TV set and doesn't want to miss any part of this conversation, you may wish to log on there, follow and like that page. Yes, so we'll get straight on started with the papers. For Sunday this morning, it's going to be 2 for the price of 1, and trust me, he has the energy to drive it all with me the way down. Okay, so we'll be beginning with the Nation newspaper. On the Nation newspaper, the banner headline has Ministers, Tinubu Malls, SAN, ex-governors, technocrats, others. It has a pictorial there of the group CEO of ICIM, Steve Ibachukwu. Okay, so above the nameplate we have Atiku, PDP confused. President tells tribunal. NERC discos fine-tune tariffs hike plan. It's all about hike these days. Senators, reps oppose move. Federal government will redirect $800 million palliatives cash. ASUU loses bid to stop Cornwall's registration. We have just below the nameplate, federal government has raised $500 million for food sufficiency, says Shetima. And we have a report that according to the Senate leader, that President Tinubu's list will be ready tomorrow. There's also a pictorial on the front page. Emefiele rearrested in court after interagency brawl. You would see the pictures of Emefiele arriving the court with a lady suspected to be his spouse. And then the officials of the Department of Security Services and the Correctional Services in a tussle over whose custody Emefiele should be after his rearrest at the court premises yesterday. So much drama in a country, people are barely strong enough to stick on as spectators. Osando.
Well, thank you very much, Ayara. First, please let me just add this caveat, if you permit me, that on this newspaper review, I want to speak as Osondu Ahirika, and not as a commissioner on the board of IECOM, and let that be on record, so I can express my personal views on this issue. When we go to the second barrel of the program, then I can speak as a member of the board of IECOM.
Yeah, allowed.
Now you've given me the permission. Okay. Now it's a sad thing. It's a shame indeed that barely less than 2 months into the administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, a Democrat, a chieftain of NADECO, National Democratic Coalition, somebody who was known to be at the vanguard of fighting for democracy in this country, just barely 2 months into his administration, we see the show of shame where the DSS, in flagrant disregard of a duly given verdict of the court that Emefiele, the former central bank governor, should be remanded in the custody of the correctional facilities with specification. And just 2 minutes after his lordship had given that verdict, the DSS, with impunity, with an audacity that is not known to the laws of this country, goes to strip a high-ranking officer of the Nigerian Correctional Facility, almost stripping him naked, and dragging Emefiele to take him away to their custody. I don't know what credentials, again, President Tinubu can talk of. Is this the renewed hope we are talking about? And then this, tells me something about us as Nigerians, and now that includes me. We are better at preaching change than changing ourselves. It's always easier when we are there looking in, we tell the people what to do. You'll be very surprised, Ayana, that if I made the president today, this is something I'm condemning, I find myself doing it. But why should it be so? So for me, that was heartbreaking to see. It shocked Nigerians and it shocked the international community to the bone marrows that a man who had invested his life and resources into championing democracy, a man who stared the former president, Olusegun Obasanjo, eyeball to eyeball in defense of the tenets of democracy as governor of Lagos State and an opposition state, and to the applause of Nigerians, will now tolerate this. And again, look at the interagency clash, which he, the president, had given instruction that he doesn't want to condone in his administration, where you see the police manhandle the DSS, or the DSS fight with the immigration, or immigration fight with customs, or with the military fight with the Air Force, the army fight with the Air Force. But that's what we saw yesterday. And up till now, there is no official statement from the presidency to call the precaution. That is sad.
It's unfortunate, and it looks like this is happening too often in the Tinubu presidency.
Absolutely.
A few days into his presidency, we saw the DSS
break into the EFCC
offices and stop officers of EFCC from getting access into the facility.
Force them out of the facility. Yes, and it was on the heels of that the presidency said he will not be tolerating this interagency, clashes again, and that they should show some decorum for the agencies that they represent and work in synergy. But look at what happened. And I tell you, our people, let me use it in the BB, or maybe I will try a transliteration. They say, the DSS will not have acted with such audacity and impunity if there is nobody who is driving them. There's a puppeteer somewhere that is pulling the strings for them to do it, and it is left for the government to unravel who this person is. I gave them that kind of boldness to do what they did. It was really sad. A sad day for democracy in Nigeria.
Sad day for democracy in Nigeria. But let's look at Leadership newspaper. Perhaps Leadership newspaper could offer some hope. Okay, on the Leadership newspaper we have as banner headlines: manufacturer narrow free float. Manufacturers labor seek CBN intervention. Say economy lacks fundamentals for policy. That's for policy of naira free float. Naira hits 870 naira per dollar. Apex Bank moves to tackle dollar exchange, raises MPR to 18.75%. Dollar exchange rates 2019 to 2023. Official market rates and parallel market rates. That's on the infograph on the front page of the Leadership newspaper. We also have on the side columns: resident doctors begin indefinite strike. Also, that's a serious one.
A very serious one.
Job racketeering. Reps gave FCC chair 24-hour ultimatum. Halt electricity tariff increase. Lawmakers tell executive. There is a picture of the Senate president there. And above the nameplate we see UN summit. Nigeria gets $500 million to boost food security. And again, it reports on the drama as DSS prison officials clash over Emefiele's rearrest. Leadership newspaper is still reflecting, is still calling this the correctional officials by their old appellation, prison officials. Okay, so we have what looks like what looks like a good news here. After leadership report, Benin Republic addresses multiple taxes on transit cargoes. This looks like what Nigeria would want to emulate.
Absolutely.
Okay, so is there anything on leadership you want to talk about?
Let's talk about the electricity tariff, which affects everybody. The federal government is talking about palliatives, that will help the poor masses of Nigeria to mitigate the effect of the abrupt fuel increase that we've had in less than 2 months, and with over 100% hike. Now, electricity is the next benchmark. If you want to affect the greatest number of the people, they depend on electricity for business and for all what they do, their household activities. In fact, at the heart of development and growth and the economy of this country is power generation. Now, we don't even have enough power generated. After a little while, you hear that there's a collapse of Afan substation or this substation or that substation. The transmission is not okay. The power generation is not okay. We don't have sometimes up to 18 hours. 18 is even being to call it 12 hours electricity a day. And yet, what they are happy on is hike. If you hike the power electricity subsector, what is there for the masses? This is where the government can show us some palliative, because it will go around. And I want to commend the House of Representatives for stopping this hike, because this hike would have been justified a bit if there was improve in the services rendered by these power holding companies. But the services rather are degenerating, and yet they are happy on hike. So that for me is not good news in any way.
I wonder how a resident of Uyo, for example, who's had to experience close to a week of outage in the last 1 month when they said the transmission lines got faulty and all of. I'm trying to imagine how residents of Uyo will be receiving this notification of a hike when they barely. I tell you, that's the fastest thing they implement. Yes. In my community there in Usef off Moiba Road, the transformer went off since February up till date. They have not shown up to fix it or do anything about it. But if it were to be about hike, the next day they will be on your compound, they'll be in your premises to give you the new bill. So this is a real sad reality for Nigeria, and we're just going on in vicious cycles. Let's talk about the Naira, the Naira, the free fall of the Naira. There's so much motion in this government and no movement. And it's really sad. You know, every day the same guy. Everybody said President Tinubu is the first Nigerian president who really came prepared. I don't know if it takes eternity to show this preparation, because like we have these words that say hit the ground running. Since he came to power, is renaming airports. Going around the country to rename airports, and I wonder what impact that has directly on the lives of the people. And he has done that with alacrity. Every other thing is just so much noise, no motion. The Naira policy, the monetary policy of the central bank since the removal of Emefiele, which they gave us a promise, is a flip-flop. Emefiele has been turned to a political prisoner because the charges against him are not sustainable. No issues. And I mean, this federal government should look at more serious matters and not run after rats. Because after the removal of Emefiele, nothing has substantially changed about the CBN. Where are the new currency notes? We are not seeing them anywhere. We don't know a policy direction. Are we going to revert to the old notes? Because from why it has not been officially announced, that seems like what is going to be obtainable. Because all I see is the old currency. I don't even see the new Naira notes again. They are now as scarce as foil itself. And one would begin to imagine if the order by CBN that the old notes will actually be phased out by December 2023 still stands. I can assure you that I cannot bet now that will not stand. Of course, President Tinubu had said in his inaugural address that the policy will be reviewed, and that review, you and I can safely predict what that review will be. It's unfortunate. So Nigeria still keeps basking as a country of strong men with weak institutions. Absolutely weak institutions, very directionless. I thought that this country, looking like it's on autopilot, will end with the immediate past administration. But unfortunately, President, he has given us some good speeches. I give it to him because, of course, he has very brilliant people who craft speeches for him. Yeah. But it has ended at that. All speeches, no value. And Shakespeare in Hamlet says, "My words to heavens fly, but my thoughts." Phrases would be defined in English language. A talk of an idiot signifies where CBN on new route to inflation control raises interest on banks' deposits. The pictorials there is still that of Emefiele, and that happens to be all there is about a country that is already in crisis. One wonders how this is suddenly becoming a national policy. So we have 15,000 IVF babies delivered in 130 Nigerian clinics since 1989. We also have a report: fruit ripening with chemicals partly responsible for untimely deaths. NAFDAC warns. There is a story here on the ministerial list where Senate has deferred anything on it till Thursday, and while urging discourse to allow Nigerians breathe. let me start with the good news before I go to the ministerial list. The IVF, I think a fruitless marriage is something I wouldn't wish an enemy if I had one. Much as I don't think I have an enemy as I'm seated here, or somebody I consider I hate or vilify that much, but I wouldn't wish anybody a fruitless marriage. And when you see childless couples, it's always heartbreaking.
to see people like that. So if you are blessed with children, you will not know the pain, you will not know the agony, you will not know the loneliness, the heartbreak, the emotional wreck that childless couples tend to. Many couples who have issues, either conceiving or raising children through the natural way, can go through the IVF and still have their sperms and eggs fertilized and bring it for children, and that's fantastic. With that number, you can now imagine the number of families that joy has been brought to them through IVF. So I think that is a breakthrough for human science and biological technology. Having said so, let me come to the ministerial list. Full of sound and fury, we find nothing. The list will not be far from what we have predicted all the while. I know, and the way they are hiding the list is like those days we had this television. I don't know, then they used to give to that television, they used to close
national.
They close the door and open the door, and when we want to watch the television, it will be like serving communion to the family. What is there about a ministerial list for a President Tinubu whom we know has been there, man and boy, has been on ground, and then the ministerial list is now being handled as if it is
he's going to
a sacred
man. He's going to create new people to bring
the same old faces. It will be the same old story. So why not show us the list? Why not send these people down there? What is this drama all about? Now again, the only reason for this drama is when you are using the list to settle people, and perhaps you are there feeling, oh, this person will feel not carried along. I don't think ministerial list should be something about settling political hangers on supporters and so on. It should be about the soul of this country. It should be about what they can bring to the table. And looking at Tinubu, he has shown in the past that he's a man that has an eye for people who can deliver. I hope the pressure of the presidency will not make him derail from that path, because I think the only reason why this list has become such a shrouded in such secrecy is because of interests that are hovering and angling around to make the list, and that's not good for our polity.
It's sad. Okay, so there is in the next newspaper, the News Direct, where which still reports largely the Emefiele stories. We won't dwell on that, but we have President Tinubu on Diaspora Day says, "My administration will prioritize engagement with Nigerians in diaspora." EcoBank wins Euromoney Award as Africa's best bank for SMEs. Will secure future of Niger Delta beyond oil. That's according to the NDDC MD. By the way, NDDC, looks like we're beginning to hear so little about it. And then we have Ogun. Gunmen abduct ex-provost driver.
Well, the case of insecurity all over the country. Again, we've been given so much hope. I want to commend President Tinubu, at least on this score, that the way he went about his appointments has given us some level of hope that finally we are going to. I've seen what they've done in Plateau State, which has become a killing field, a block field, recently by inaugurating another task force to curb insecurity in the 5 local governments of including Jos South, Mangu, and all those Barrack and Ladi, all those local government areas. Let's hope that these new service chiefs, especially with the federal character spread, unlike what we had in President Buhari, where only a section of the country won the security architecture of this, that this will give us some hope. We have a religious and ethnic balance and geopolitical balance in the military in the security architecture, and I believe that this is positive, and this shows us a pointer that they will tackle insecurity. These pockets of abductions, kidnaps by bandits and murders here and there in almost all parts of the country. Let's give him a little time. I hope it will die down if it's not eradicated completely.
Okay, so we move on to the New Telegraph. Quite some interesting stories. It has on just above the nameplate, IMF returns Nigeria's 2023 growth forecast at 3.2%. There's another story that borrowers to pay more as CBN raises lending rates to 18.75%. The banner headlines still has to do with the MFLA, DSS, and correctional service officials drama, but there are quite a number of stories I know would interest you, Osondu. I see here: remain in PDP, stop meddling in APC's affairs, parties elders advise Jonathan. We also see another one: governors fight predecessors on resumption of office. Akpabio, that's in pages 5 and 7 of the New Telegraph. Uproar in Senate over Oshomole's alleged attack on 9th Assembly. Adamu Omisore mom after closed door meeting with Tinubu. President to send ministerial list to Senate in 48 hours. ACA worried over socio-economic challenges facing the North. That's it. Okay, so we also have a report from INEC. Power of incumbency, thuggery undermining electoral process. It has a rider, IPAC to judiciary, based judgment on law, not technicalities. Tinubu's declaration as president, illegal, Atiku tells tribunal. And then still on the tariff hike, stop proposed electricity tariff hike. Now, Senate tells FG as reps bar discourse from estimated billing extortion of customers.
Let's go back to the Akpabio story.
Okay. It says governors fight predecessors on resumption of office.
I would say, you know, I have a friend in Ibesigo who says the day he sees God, that he will not tell God anything. He will just look at you eyeball to eyeball and say, and walk away. That God will understand. So if I should see His Excellency the Senate President after he made this, that's why I said let's go back there. I'll tell him, and I'll walk away. And that should make him understand. Did he fight his predecessor on resumption of office? If the answer is yes, who are we to blame? But I want to give it to the current governor, His Excellency Governor Moino, you know, who invited his predecessor to flag off the Akwa Ibom dialogue on the Arise agenda, and we saw the camaraderie, that the friendship, the courtesy, the respect that he showed to his predecessor. I think that should be the story. It's unlike what you have in Benue, where the former governor is at loggerheads with the current governor, and then the current governor goes into his car shop, and they towed away over 30 vehicles. Or what we have in Kaduna State, Kano State, where former governor, immediate past governor Ganduje, who was like the emperor in Kano, is now running to the courts to protect him against the onslaught of the current governor, who is demolishing structures. He says they was demolish his homes and homes of his children and his allies. All these kind of stories. I think we should take example from even Governor Omono and Governor Sim Fubara of Rivers State, who has flagged off a 50-kilometer dual carriageway with 2 bridges with his predecessor, and people are calling him paper tiger or whatever, a stooge, and that these governors are doing fair.
I think people really enjoy seeing this fight.
Absolutely, that's what I was coming to. Unfortunately, our people enjoy seeing a governor fight his predecessor, but I don't think it's right. I don't think it's correct. I know. If somebody helps you to become a governor, I think the best thing you owe the person is some courtesy, some loyalty. Even if you disagree with the person, disagree privately and don't bring it to the public domain. Governors should look forward and then not try to settle scores on which hunt their predecessors.
By the way, I also think ex-governor Dom Emmanuel has really done well to not exert so much overburdening influence on the system. You see that since he left, it's taken him almost like 2 months to resurface.
And of course, the people had to start asking. In fact, they almost got a hashtag. Bring back. Where is Governor Dom Emmanuel? Where is the Dom Emmanuel? And sometimes, at Benenkuka, Afronokan, you know. So I think that absence, of course, even in the laws of power, they say use absence to reinforce respect.
Yeah.
So I think his absence is worthwhile, and to give his successor room to breathe.
And I saw after that flag of the Akwa Ibom dialogue, I saw a narrative on the internet where someone attempted to tongue-lash the ex-governor for flying into the state on a chartered aircraft and instead of joining a passenger plane, and that quite snapped a thing in me. Now the issue, what that snapped in me was, okay, so suddenly, so it means we've been able to overcome the tussle of having both the former and incumbent governors struggle for who flies the state aircraft to having a governor who's left office and known that he has left and has left the aircraft behind and moved on with his life. Well, so that took me into going back to the pictures to actually see that Governor Emmanuel came on a different aircraft than the state carrier.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the right thing that should have been done was to send the state carrier to go bring him in. But unfortunately, maybe if he brings him in, you know, the people will misinterpret it, will start, they say, why is he still flying? Why should he? And perhaps to avoid that, they had to, you know, you can imagine how much has been paid to a chartered aircraft to bring him in. So many times it's because of what people will say. But you know, again, sometimes we should look beyond what people say. If what people say will not put food on your table, like my opinion is look away from it and face your front.
You've time and again emphasized
absolutely, absolutely. What you say will not put food on my table, will not clothe my children, will not pay their fees. So what the heck? And I have to go on. I think the government should sometimes also close its ears to meaningless banter on social media. But when the people have something, you know, constructive to say, the government should listen. But where it is unprofitable disputation, which the Bible says we should flee from, and then they should ignore it and do what is right.
Okay, so the Daily Trust has it, still the MFLA story. We will try to look away from that. But below the nameplate, we have petrol price hike, no plan to reduce work days, FG. CBN increases interest rates to 18.75%, highest in 22 years. Tinubu made ousted APC chair secretary. 48 hours to deadline. Tinubu yet to send ministerial list to Senate. List will reach us within 2 days. Senate leader will beat deadline. That's the presidency.
Of course, that's not news. We know they will beat the deadline. Now, about the interest hike in interest rates, you know, everything just gets difficult in Nigeria by the day, and people are getting more impoverished. Now, to even access a loan from banks, the interest has been increased, and with the cost of everything, cost of production going up, I wonder what investors, small-scale enterprises, entrepreneurs will do when they get loans to invest in business. The climate, the business climate in the country is, you know, strangulating.
Hostile.
It's very hostile. And like the videos will say, I say, when the feather of the goat is too tight, it will strangle the goat. So I don't know how they want people to succeed. Look, Nigeria needs real political surgery, needs a messiah. I don't know when one will come.
Okay, this newspaper says, after ousting them, Tinubu meets Adamu Omisore at State House. U.S. Embassy Anti-Graft Group urge President to unveil master plan for corruption.
This will be a very tough call. If I have to tell you my mind, I believe the EFCC is has been notified. Okay. The EFCC is in a mortuary, in a political mortuary. I don't expect much from the EFCC going forward under this administration. Now, am I saying the administration is corrupt? No. But this is the danger you have when you have a core politician in charge. He cannot but play politics. And that's what President Tinubu is doing. If I can take you back to the 70 billion given to the National Assembly and 500 billion given to the millions of masses. You can see the politics of settling the big boys of food is ready for the political class. And look at the FCC. Bawa is been suspended and is, I think, still in detention. And I don't even know. And if I ask people now, who is the new acting chairman of EFCC, his name is not known. He's not been seen. He's not been heard from. And the place is just like that. This is the time for politicians, you know, to get settlements and reprieve from EFCC. I believe the EFCC is being notified. And before you see before the US, you see the US call out that they should give us a roadmap. Have you noticed that the president has not really talked about fighting corruption or anything anti-corruption? Is so we can predict from his body language that he's not interested.
Okay, so the Daily Sun says Senate prepares for recess amid non-submission of ministerial list. Security agencies delay Tinubu with slow check on nominees. Senators prefer list with full security report. It will get to us in 48 hours. That's according to Bamidele. Imo, Bayelsa, Kogi Post. INEC warns party leaders against use of thugs, harassment of election officials. Still so much on the MFLA issue, but there is one here. Ijo youths declare war on all firms in Niger Delta over gas flaring. Kaduna records 68 suspected diphtheria cases, 8 dead. NAS bans discourse NERC from increasing electricity price and estimated billing.
I like I said earlier, I wholly support the ban. Nigerians should be given some space to breathe. Even if we must reiterate this for emphasis and stress it more and more, please, let's all encourage the reps. And I believe the Senate should concur so that the people can have some respite.
Let the people breathe. Okay, we have the Daily Times, we have the Independent, all of that. Okay, but the Daily Independent reports that lawyers criticize DSS rearrest of Emefiele despite court order. Say action frustrating highest dent on Tinubu's government. Ask court to penalize DSS, demand obedience to court orders, then warn against supplanting the rule of law, reject arbitrariness.
Absolutely, I couldn't add more. The only thing I will have to say is that the DSS has overnight turned the Emefiele into a folk hero.
Unfortunate. Okay, so that's how much we want to go on the newspaper segment, and as you already heard, and that will be all about Osondu Ahirika. We will be switching to the Commissioner 3 in the Ethical and Attitudinal Reorientation Commission as we switch the conversation to the Akwa Ibom dialogue.
Thank you very much. So I now cease to be Osondu Ahirika. I was speaking for myself, not for the commission on the newspaper review. So
okay, so much in a country that's had to that sat on a number of national conferences in a time when referendum does not seem to be a very popular option in government, and at a time when we've seen national conferences, we've seen conversations fail. What hope does the Akwa Ibom dialogue come on stream with?
Thank you very much. You know, beyond the summit on education, which was held by the previous Governor Dom Emmanuel, on the education sector, which gave us a roadmap for going for education. This is apparently the first time that issues of development, and of course this is novel, this is the first time in the history of this country that a governor will subject his agenda to a public referendum. And it is for the people. Look at what I have. I'm putting it on the table. Come, every stakeholder. Let's take ownership of this. Let's brainstorm on this. Let's meet minds on this, and then let's chart a way forward. I don't know it all. This is my idea. Now, experts in the various stratas of society, bring to bear what you have. Translate this vision. I've written it down. I've written down the vision. The videos will say, I can't do this on my own. All of you, bring what you have to bear, and let's expand the focus. So I know how to do. This is leadership. This is leadership. A leader shows the way, and then leadership comes with bringing the people on, knowing that they are stakeholders, knowing that they should be owners of this, and then let them drive the process. The governor has laid bare his vision, and then it is for everyone to run along and tag along with it. And what a fantastic way to start, that just before he launches out into the deep, he brings it down and tells the people, brainstorm. There are places, there are things he will not have seen. There are things he will not have seen. There are things he knows but doesn't know to the extent, because of course he's not an expert in all the fields. There are people who know, will come and expound and expatiate on these things and add depth, faith to what he's doing. And so it is a fantastic and welcome development that a governor will put his agenda on the ground for everyone to brainstorm. And that's the kind of thing you see only in the State House of Assembly, when they call public hearing on bills before they pass laws. And you see that many times when the transparent and then security arise agenda. Now, for the governor, when these outcomes are out and the templates are given to him, he will be surprised that that small thing that he brought to the table has become an ocean. So this was a very welcome, or this is, because it's still ongoing, a very welcome development.
Too many cooks, they say, spoil the broth. Doesn't this look like bringing on too many people to offer opinions on what the Arise agenda should be, could further distract the focus of the agenda, conscious of the fact that there is no way two people would think the same way. So many people throwing their opinions could further distract the focus.
You are correct, but unfortunately there's a safeguard to this. Now, this is a brainstorming session where people, agree to disagree, and then it will be sieved, and then the superior arguments, the consensus. This is to build consensus. So it's not an issue of this one person, no, I'm going to do the same Maggie, I'm going to same Maggie, I'm going to Yarita, and then you this is consensus building. This dialogue, this referendum is about building a consensus, and at the end of the day, what you are going to have as the outcome is the consensus agreement of people in different stratas. Now, I'm not going to be a medical expert, and I live talking about what the governor talks about, medical corridor between Ibom specialist clinic and the general hospital, and I think for instance, and I start going to talk about security, where I am not an expert. I'm not a former military official or DSS official, or I don't have any training, requisite training to talk about security. No, it's all good. If I'm a medical expert, my concentration will be, my contribution to that workshop will be in that field. And now with other like minds who are technocrats or experts in the various fields, they will have an aggregation of their ideas going forward, and it's this aggregation that will now form the outcome, the final template, which will be submitted to the governor, and then which they will run with. So with that, it's foolproof to the issue of too many cooks spoiling the pot. And of course, at the end of the day, it is not all these people that are going to implement it. The implementation will now go to the responsible ministries and parastatals or agencies that are going to handle the implementation. So it's going to be coordinated. And this governor, he comes to government with a private sector mind. Okay. And his hands are on ground. He's not an armchair governor. This is a man that will be strict about supervision. He has already shown that.
Okay, so they say it is going to be a 35-year development plan for Akwa Ibom State, but Governor Umeno has 4 years in the first instance, maximum 8 years.
Absolutely.
8 years taken out of 35 years means the rest of the 27 years will be on the whoever would be governor at that within that period to stay on this blueprint. What is on ground to ensure that succeeding governments are compelled to stay on this blueprint? I'm talking considering the fact that we have developed nations of the world that had to set out this kind of agenda for themselves and stuck to it regardless of party and whoever came to power after Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew.
A very interesting question, because most times when a governor who like they will say a fellow who does not know Joseph comes in, perhaps an opposition party takes over, they will want to dismantle everything. But you know, in a civilized climate, government is a continuum. It does not matter. And Akwa Ibom, I give it to Akwa Ibom. Akwa Ibom said to some extent, of course, the PDP has been in charge since the return of democracy in the country, and so somehow they've tried to maintain that steady good. But one of the ways I will advise that this can be done is that the outcomes of the dialogue can be given to the State House of Assembly to now enact laws and make them laws that are binding. So it will now be followed as acts of the Akwa Ibom State House of Assembly. That even if you come to power, after we just like we have statutory commissions, for instance, and you see that when even a new governor comes in, like the president came in and dissolved the boards and parastatals, he said for the statutory bodies, we can make this thing statutory, so that even if you come in from a different party platform, or you come in and you don't necessarily agree with the governor, the governor that has brought the vision, all you can do is, you know, bring a little tinker a little with it, but the essential spirit. After all, what is the goal? Development of the state. And any governor, any government, any administration, irrespective of the party, whether it is PPP or CCC or DDD, all you have at the fulcrum of your administration is how to develop the state. And if there's a template to follow, it doesn't take away anything from you to follow it to the latter. So I believe the outcome should be given to the House of Assembly, either through a government-sponsored bill or a private member bill, you know, so that it will be initiated and then made into a statutory law, so that any government, a statutory document that any government that comes in will follow key.
How much of the bipartisan nature of this dialogue, of this ongoing dialogue, do you think will help its implementation?
Absolutely fantastic. You know, the issue of political inclusion, I want to give it to this governor. This governor has meant business. Before he became governor, he was talking about that as a pastor, he runs a ministry of reconciliation. That many times he does altar call to call people who have not yet given their lives to Christ Jesus to come over and do so. And that in politics is going to do same. And I've seen him extend the olive branch to members of the opposition party. We've seen how he has, you know, deferred to His Excellency Senator Godswill Obodokpa, the Senate President of the Federal Republic, as a number 3 citizen, and offered him all the platitudes and all the courtesies that office demands, irrespective of the fact that they just came from the trenches of fighting elections on different, you know, party platforms. And now in the dialogue, I saw chieftains of the APC like Chief Donny Etibet. I saw Senator Itainang, immediate past senior special assistant to the president of the APC, and of course a former governorship aspirant on the platform of the APC. You know, aspirant was still fighting to be declared the candidate also. I saw the governorship candidate of the ADC, architect Ezekiel Yaito. I saw members of the NNPP and other political parties across board. He invited them. I didn't see the Senate president there, but I have conviction in me that he extended invitation to the Senate president, perhaps because of official duties at this present time that they are talking about ministerial list and so on. He couldn't make it. So this bipartisan nature.
And then send a representation?
Yeah, of course. Well, that's up to him. But the bipartisan nature of this dialogue shows you it was an Akwa Ibom thing. And I've heard people criticize and say, why did they do it strictly on invitation? For God's sake, the Ibom Icon Hotel, which gives the ambience where this cannot be thrown open for all comers you know you will not control.
Absolutely,
the pressure will be too much. And secondly, the dissection of the demographics, the social demographics that have been brought into bear on this is all embracing. Students' union, labor unions, civil society organizations, non-governmental organizations, socio-cultural bodies, professional bodies, technocrats, professionals in different disciplines, youth groups, women groups, what have you. Every demographic has been represented at this dialogue. So the outcomes will be fed into the system, and it will be to the benefit of all. So sometimes it's not everything that we need to criticize. Now, people from other political parties were there. If they have interests from their political parties or perspectives which they feel has not been carried along, they are free to aid, and of course they are doing so at the conference. So for me, this was an Akwa Ibom, and indeed the name is called Akwa Ibom Dialogue, not PDP Dialogue, not the Umoino Dialogue, they didn't say Arise Agenda Dialogue. No, he carefully called it Akwa Ibom Dialogue. So it's an Akwa Ibom thing. The governor has just returned ownership. Of course, at the other time he said he wants power to return to the people. He just returned the document to the people and said deliberate on it and then give me the feed forward. And what he's waiting for is the feed forward. This is humility in governance. For you to know that you don't know it all, and that there are people there who could have superior arguments, superior ideas, and help you tinker with what you have done.
And there comes a pan-Nigerian coloration to this dialogue. Absolutely. Where people who are non-Akwa Ibom indigenes are seen quite visible on the conversations.
Absolutely.
And we saw the likes of Bath Naji, a former Minister of Power in the Federal Republic, and a lot of other people. The guy from Oyo State who is a director of DEBO, Dr. DEBO, a director with IITA, who's supposed to look at biodiversities and biotechnology in agricultural development and all of that. Does it mean Akwa Ibom doesn't have the requisite manpower to have filled these gaps?
I think you are coming from a point of strength to an anti-climax. You said it has a national
outlook.
Absolutely. IECOM considers this a sub-national referendum. Sub-national, but with pan-Nigerian outlook. And to even bring people from, it's credit to the governor that in bringing these experts from outside, now other states can learn from the example of Akwa Ibom and can also take something from that workshop. The workshop was also beamed live, I hope you know, on national, and of course on live streaming. So it is absolutely on AKBC TV. Now, absolutely, it becomes a sub-national dialogue at the time Nigeria is looking for a way forward for development. And this talks about climate change, biodiversity, agricultural revolution, and of course these are the plans, building plans on which Nigeria can come out of the doldrums. Now we are talking about, from the newspaper review, we learned the federal government has received $500 million for food security. What is the way forward? If they listen to this sub-national dialogue, which has agricultural revolution as one of its, core values or core issues to be debated upon, the country can extract a lot from this, and instead of holding another one, just learn from it and then drag the system. So Governor Umoino thought this out very well. And one thing about leadership, the leadership should not be afraid to see other kings, to see other people grow. Only a Herod would be afraid of a newborn king. But any natural king should not be afraid of other people's stars. Rather, he should bring those stars and, as a leader, harness those stars for a betterment of the society. And this is what you see happening. So that's why IECOM has already defined this as a sub-national dialogue for the development, to put up a development agenda for Nigeria.
What would IECOM describe the governor's choice of Senator Udoma to chair that dialogue as?
First and foremost, it shows you that the governor has put politics behind, and that this is time for governance. He's matching his words. because Senator Odoma, we know, is the chieftain of the All Progressives Congress. 2, Senator Odoma is a man of international clout and renown. He has all it takes. So he is looking at competence. The governor is looking at competence, at credibility, as integrity, and not what this. There's no political consideration or coloration to what the governor is doing. So EACOM encourages this because for EACOM, this is about bringing all citizens on board as stakeholders, as co-owners, that we should have a communal ownership of this vision. And so this is what the governor has achieved in putting this forward to acquiring people and giving us communal ownership. It is owned by the people. It is for the people, and it's for the good of the people.
Sometimes implementation could be stalled by the people who would want to sabotage government's efforts. But according to Senator Odoma at the opening of that dialogue, he said failure of blueprints has been lack of effective implementation. Government spend 90% time in drawing up policies and just a paltry 10% on implementation. There should be measurable goals for each of the priorities. What can't be measured can't be monitored. Does EACOM think that there are ways it could partner the people to ensure that they buy into these policies? And
absolutely. First and foremost, EACOM has already embarked on a statewide advocacy of, one, taking the outcomes, because we are participating fully in dialogue, taking the outcomes of this dialogue down to the grassroots. We engage with traditional rulers, with church organizations, with churches, with civil society groups, with socio-political and socio-cultural groups. We try to sell to them the idea that this is not about PDP, APC, YPP, CPC, or whatsoever party. We have about 18 registered political parties now. This is about Akwa Ibom, and that everybody should bury these political divides and then key into this program and align so that we can achieve the success. We can also benefit therefrom. So EACOM will continue their advocacy. EACOM will partner all these critical stakeholders, including the traditional institutions, to ensure that the people, we call it that we have to isolate social pollution. We don't want any social pollution to this agenda. We don't want any cynic. We don't want any critic, or we don't want anybody bringing political hearsays into this matter. So EACOM will be at the forefront of resisting it and getting the people socially responsible and bringing this to them as civil obligations, that they are obligated as citizens of this state to support this lofty vision, so that at the end of the 4 years, 8 years, the timelines of this administration, God willing, we are going to see the real dividends of what we hope will be the golden era for Akwa Ibom State.
Sometimes success of programs like this depend on how patriotic the people are.
Absolutely.
But we've also seen from our past experiences that most acts of patriotism are barely celebrated. We saw the Senator Odoma who chaired the opening ceremony of that dialogue, talk about people who sacrificed so much to saying to the abrogation of the onshore-offshore oil dichotomy. But often than not, we tend to see narratives that begin and end with Obong Victor Attah as a champion of that fight. No mention is usually made of people who contributed and supported that fight in a way or two. People in the mode of Senator Effiong Bob, who first began as the Attorney General, who did all of the processes of taking the government to court, and subsequently moved on to the Senate, where that dichotomy was finally abrogated by an act of Parliament. Now the issue is, when we look at people who sacrificed so much, we've seen the likes of Senator Ibarra in it. We know that Bogun Parawe Bibio at the time also did so well in championing the fight for that abrogation. But the truth is, not so much is mentioned of them. But we also know that there were some unpatriotic elements of that time who never supported the fight, who sided with the repressive federal government at the time, and made so much gains from such support against their kids and kin. some of them are still enjoying benefits and dividends of that unfaithful romance against home, while the people who supported that fight are barely mentioned. What do you think we can do as a people to recognize and give due credit to the people who supported that fight? We also had the likes of Senator Itainang in the House of Representatives at that time, and all of that. So little mention is made of these people.
Well, I share different perspective with him. Ayara, if AKBC does very well, including what you are doing excellently in anchoring center points on AKBC.
Thank you.
If the credit has to be given, who will it go to?
My DG.
The DG. And once the DG of AKBC has been celebrated, that AKBC is doing well, that trickles down because they know he has provided leadership. But that other people, the studio hands, the cameramen, the people that are seen and those that are not seen, even this program you are doing excellently well, if you are praised, who are those to be praised? Who are those that share by implicitly in this praise? It is the people behind the scenes. It's your producer, it's the cameraman, it's the people on the studio console. So this is what we should know. If a church is celebrated as doing well, if the Redeemed Christian Church of God Mission, for instance, or the Catholic Church is celebrated for doing well, who do we celebrate?
Or the Green Pastures Ecumenical
Church is said to be have done well. Who is celebrated? Okay, let me start charity at home.
Yeah.
Of course, they will say, the Reverend Nelson Nahirika, who is the General Overseer by God's divine permission of Green Pastures, has done well. But behind me are the presbytery, the pastors, ministers, are the choir, the prayer band, the youth fellowship, the women fellowship, the children. Now, you don't necessarily start counting all these people. When Obawata is celebrated, it's because at that time he was the governor and he was the fulcrum, he was the galvanizing point. The buck stopped on his table to lead that fight. So, but in writing the history, the long essays, all these people have their credit. At least I've read of them. So I don't agree with him on that position. Does it mean that anytime we want to talk about, like if you want to talk about those who fought for it now, I will start reading a long list of Senator Odoma, Senator Itainang, Senator Iborisian, Senator Efyongbo, this, that. No. Once we say Obon Victor Atta, we know that he was the champion. We know he initiated it. But that he didn't achieve this alone is a fact. So I don't really agree with him that those people are not celebrated or are barely celebrated. I've read several write-ups, I've read several books on the resource control where all these names are mentioned, and that's enough credit.
Okay, so people think that the opinion of the masses are not as it should captured in the ongoing dialogue, that there are quite a number of concerns they feel are not going to be ventilated in the course of the exchanges and interactions, because it is a closed event. It is closed from open participation and all of that. Now, don't you think that beyond the dialogue there should be a thing the Ethical and Attitudinal Reorientation Commission should consider in opening its flanks for people to come in to give people with meaningful contributions on what they feel should be some positive addition to the dialogue? There should be some avenue where they can throw these contributions to.
Of course, first and foremost, I refuted that insinuation by saying that virtually every critical demographic of the society, I mentioned labor unions, political parties of different ilks and extractions. I mentioned civil society groups, student groups, women groups, market unions, labor unions. They are all there in the dialogue in representative capacity, because of course not everybody can go. So I believe that when we distill at the end of the day issues discussed there, all these sectors will be represented. But having said so, I also did say that EACOM will partner strategic stakeholders across board, religious groups, traditional rulers and traditional councils and organizations, civil society groups, churches, schools, the rural communities, local government councils, tertiary institutions, and of course every other strata of society, that it is going to be an ongoing thing. And in those interfaces, in those dialogues, if there is anything that was left unsaid or was not handled, of course you can trust ACOM. We are an advocacy board. You can trust ACOM to take the advocacy back to the government and make the advocacy and put it out there for government to say, and we have a listening governor, for God's sake. That's why he has opened this dialogue, because he wants to listen to the people before he embarks on implement. There's a government that will have come in and in the name of hitting the ground running will start implementing his agenda. But no, he painstakingly put this together so that he can hear the people and feel them out. And I can assure you it's an ongoing thing. Before the 8 years, we have variations to contracts.
Okay.
There will be no. I don't think this government will be too insensitive not to make variations. During the timelines, just like the chairman had said, in the timelines we don't see the results and there are no measurable indices that this thing is working. Then there could be variations. Of course, you can trust that income will always be there to put up.
Are you not worried that we have largely population makeup of we have a large population makeup of people who do not readily want to take advantage of government windows provided by government for maybe economic programs, social policies and interventions, rather than sit back to casting aspersions? We saw that with the Dakada initiative of the immediate past administration. It didn't just begin then. The administration before then had the Akwa Ibom Odo slogan that sought to drive the mental consciousness of the people. We also had people take advantage and make mockery and cast aspersions at that. Then with the Dakada initiative, we saw Akwa Ibom people sit arms folded, and till we began to see people outside the state come in to take benefits of what the government was investing and which was supposed to have been seemingly an exclusive preserve of people of the state. Now with the Arise agenda, how prepared are Akwa Ibom people to take benefit of this agenda before we see outsiders come in to reap such benefits?
This is at the core of ACOM's advocacy for the people to position themselves and you know, in a church just last week, our women had their convention in which was thrown open to the public, and there were a lot of people there. And of course, ACOM made representation and came to tell the women on how to position themselves, especially the people in the rural areas, how to position themselves, avoid rural-urban migration, and be prepared to key in into the development that the governor has promised that is going to come from bottom of us, from the rural areas up. It should not happen like we had in Ibom A, when Ibom A came under the former administration. There were people who were criticizing, it cannot happen. They are coming to the city people. I even remember of a gentleman, I won't mention his name here, who made a post saying, no, they should go away with Ibom A coming to deceive us. But in the end, when the thing became a reality, he went to apply to work in Ibom A. And when his cynicism was matched against his, it became an issue. So people should not be the naysayers, those perpetual critics. This is not the time for it. This is the time to position yourself for the immense opportunities, the downlines of outflows that will come from the implementation of the Arise agenda, whether it's in agriculture, in the security sector, in education, in infrastructural maintenance or expansion, or in rural development, especially. We've already seen the government flag of a rural road, you know, that will link economies. It's just time for people to position themselves and get ready to cash in and cash out from take advantage. So ACOM is making advocacy, telling the people for real, the government means business. Position yourselves, get prepared. There's a saying that says, I will prepare and wait. Someday my time will come. So let the people be prepared. That time has come, and that time is now, so that they can benefit from the Arise agenda, because there will be multiple, countless opportunities for people to key in and grow. And at ACOM is making advocacy that the people should take ownership of this agenda that has been brought to them.
But the economic realities don't seem to be looking up. People now are afraid that if a government is really as ambitious as that of Governor Umono, then the people may have to pay through their nose through increased taxes and multiple taxations. Does ECOM see this coming?
At all. Even if you look at the mien of the governor, you will know that he's not a man that will be given to those kind of things. The whole dream of the governor, he's talking about empowerment of rural women, the girl child, the youths who are totally disempowered, especially those in the rural areas where, of course, we have majority of them. Forget the few you see migrate to you, roaming the streets and having nothing to do. In fact, the governor is even preaching that soon they will have to find reason to go back. He is asking local government chairman, if you don't want to stay in your local government, please don't buy a farm, because development will be rural based. And so all the governor's mindset is how to get these rural people empowered. And I don't think you'll be thinking of empowering people only to make those things at the same time priced out of their reach or kill them with taxation and so on and so forth. I don't think that's part of the agenda. This agenda is about wealth creation, is about empowerment of the people, and I'm positive that's what he wants to pursue.
And then there is a thinking that sometimes people don't get to appreciate leaders that are humane and pro-people. People tend to take advantage of them. We've seen the last 2 months of the Umono administration. He's really scaled up the humanity in governance. He's tried to stay in touch. He's tried to bring everybody to one point. He's tried to rally the society across demographics to understanding that, yes, I could be the governor today, but I grew from amongst you, so I am still a part of you. Don't you think this could, if it continues this way, it could get to an extent where people begin to take advantage of him? We're already hearing him talk about endless visits to the office and the need to check those visits so he won't be distracted. Do you think that his humanities could give him away in the coming days?
Of course, we always advocate that because there are too many bad people, it should not stop you from remaining a good person that you are, or doing good, or because you do good to so many people who don't appreciate or who even turn the good and pay back with evil. That shouldn't stop you from being a good person. And it's your nature, it's not about their nature. Now this is about his nature, and I can tell you it's not easy to change this nature at an old age. He is a pastor, don't forget that. Every pastor has a psychology, has a mentality, has an outlook to life, and they are shepherds, they are fathers. It is not going to be easy to take that part of him out, because a pastor is about humanity. It's not going to be easy. Political protocol and political realities, and even with all the backlash, will not take that away from him. People will try to take it for granted, that's for sure. But again, we are also making advocacy. Don't take his kindness for weakness. Don't take his humility for stupidity. Don't take his olive branch for cowardice, because at the end of the day he will be governor. And I can tell you, when he needs to act as governor, nothing will stop him from acting as governor. He will be decisive. I see a man who has the courage and political will to call a spade by his name. That's why he will look at people. Some people got offended. That's why he look at people eyeball to eyeball and say, please stop the endless visits. Give us time to work. Yes, we are one, doesn't matter, but give us time to work, so that at the end of the day, we're not going to show the visits, we're going to show the work. And for him to say that, even with courtesy, that shows you that he means business. And now, having said so with courtesy, if people continue to flout it, of course, if you are shunned or if you are repelled by the system, then you know that you have yourself to blame and not anybody. So I think the governor is humane, but that humanity is not weakness. He will know how to handle it.
Okay, so by yesterday, the Akwa Ibom State House Assembly came full cycle with the screening of commissioners and special advisor nominees by the governor sent to them. And two things. That the thought of returning 100% of members of the immediate past State Executive Council doesn't seem to sit well with the people. People think that they would have expected new faces, they would have wanted to see changes and the likes. That's one in one breath. On the second breath, we had the governor at the dialogue say that you may be old on the job, but the template is new, matching the pessimism from the public on this list and the governor's resolve to have this commission, and sticking to the reality that this pessimism sometimes could be stemmed from how they performed on the last bit, and matching that with the governor's proclamation that the template is different. Is there any way you feel that a non-performer could suddenly pick speed and do well in government?
Well, let's hope so, given the because like people will say, the governor says it is you may be old, yes, but there's a new template. If the governor drives his template, then we could, because be fair to the people. If you look at the set of commissioners that were returned, only a few of them performed beyond expectations and were celebrated by people because they did very well. Now, for the rest, who were neither here nor there, this is a new template, and it's an opportunity again for them to prove people wrong. That okay, the conditions did not favor us. This time we have a governor, or we have a template that can help us to work better, and then they prove us very wrong. But again, this pessimism has also been mitigated by what the governor said, part of his humane nature, that he wouldn't expect him to abandon people who went with him to the trenches and fought a very difficult election. Because like people say, my young itam say the neighbor, it is like young itam afobele bok trap. So when you look at it, you have to also understand that the governor is being sincere but then he has made a riot act, yeah, that if you feel because you've been returned, then you just come and sit at ease in Zion, that this will not be tolerated. That is a new template, and it's not going to be business as usual. Let us believe and hope that the governor will put a leash on these people and drive them, so that because at the end of the day the blame will stop on his table. You know, unfortunately, just like, let me go back to what Senator Nodaba fell. When you fell in a thing, they will say, oh, it's Buhari. But when you succeed, everybody wants to share in the glory. So at the end of the day, the buck will stop on his table. He takes the blame, he takes the glory. So he has to get them working. And it should not just be a few sparks here and there. It should not just be about, Honorable Frank Achibong, Comrade Nemebo, Professor Neiba. There should be a broad template where all of them are seen to be doing something meaningful. There are some commissioners that even spent the last 7 years or 8 years. I don't even know their names. As I'm sitting here, I don't know their names. I know, because I've not seen anything. But what brings you to the fore is what you bring to the table. Absolutely.
Excuse me.
Sorry.
Okay, so as we begin to wind down, let's look at what lies in wait for Governor Umano. Conscious of how our political class are given to incensing people against a system. We've heard him talk about we've seen him read the Riot Act on aspiring local government chairmen. Don't aspire if you are not resident in your local government area. We've seen him read the Riot Act to commissioners and to state exco members nominee. You may be old on the job, but it is a new template. All of this doesn't yes, it as good and as good and meaningful as this much sounds, it doesn't look to me like it sits well on politicians who would rather wish that the system remained business as usual. So it is on these politicians, it is of their schemings that you would begin to see some members of the populace want to criticize the government for the wrong reason, want to hold negative opinions against the system, the polity, want to antagonize decisions and policies of government. What is ECOM doing to bring politicians to the turf where patriotism plays freely?
Absolutely. We have a new template or a new maxim that we say curbing social pollution. These things are social pollutions. When politicians rise and because of their political inclinations and persuasions try to distract the governor from focusing on his job, bring blackmail, bring subterfuge to the system, ECOM will be at the forefront of a campaign, a consistent campaign against such people. We are there advocating for and molding socially responsible citizens. And then in doing this, we want to do as much as possible to curb social pollution. So every trace of social pollution, we will follow its source and will resist the source, and will sensitize people on and warn people on what is bringing the social pollution and what that social pollution is about. So as an advocacy board, as a board that preaches moral rectitude, attitudinal reorientation, we will always be there. Once we sniff that there's an error somewhere, a social pollution somewhere, we will be on hand. We will be readily on hand to resist it, to sensitize people about it, and draw consciousness of people to resist such tendencies in our society. We want patriotism to be the watchword of every citizen. We want civil obligations, civil rights to be the vanguard of every citizen of this state, that they should rally around and mobilize support for the good intention of government. Government should not be seen as antagonistic to the people, or people should not be celebrated just because they are there in the name of opposition, for opposition's sake, to criticize government and then they become superstars. No. Opposition must be constructive, must be reasonable, it must be driven by patriotism, which is driven by other tendencies that seek to divide, that seek to demean, that seek to distract, that seek to subvert the system. ECOM will not accept such tendencies, and we will bring all our facilities to bear to run a campaign against it, sensitize people against it, and of course seek redress and redress for the people.
Okay, so as we draw the curtains in the days of the administration, we saw that order. Excuse me. We saw the order issued to traders within the Uyo Capital, the stretch of the Uyo Capital Development Authority, where people were asked to exit the roadside in a bid for government to end roadside trading. It's more than 1 month after that order was given. We still see people engage in roadside trading, and who would have thought that with that order, ECOM should have moved into these places to adequately sensitize them on the dangers of roadside trading. How far has the commission gone on this?
Of course, we are doing this too. Unfortunately, you know that these people have nowhere to go to for now. Many of them complain about this. In trying to drive people out from roadside trading, at the heart of it will be provision of stores, new markets, because already the old markets are overpopulated as we speak. Even the old markets have overflows to even the roads too, and constitute a nuisance to the people. Part of our advocacy also is for relevant government authorities, where the local government, to collaborate to create new markets where these people can relocate to. Because if you shut down, while people will lose their lives and even worse, and it brings menace to the society in terms of litter, public litter, and indecency and so on. while you are doing that, some of these people don't have any other alternative to sustain their families or to live. And so part of our humanity, government must have a human face. We need to work out a place where we can resettle these people, relocate them, so that we can fully achieve the aims of trying to stop street trading. But telling stop street trading, and these people have no way to go back to. Once they go back, and frustration will bring them back to the road. And so it's a difficult social problem, but we know that when all hands are on deck, through collaboration, we can settle it and then relocate these people to newer markets. And of course, the governor has promised that this is in the pipeline, that there will be new markets. We saw him visit the Eket. In Eket, for instance, the new ultra-modern shopping mall or market mall going on in Eket, that it will be completed very soon. And you can know the massive change that will bring to Eket. And if the same is replicated in other urban centers, we are very certain that we can bring closure to this menace.
Okay, so here come on this matter is carrot and stick. While it is encouraging traders to move away from the roadsides to avert dangers of motor accidents, loss of ways, and all, it is also
public litter.
It is also calling on government to provide a space for those people to move into. Quite a humane approach, if you may ask. Thank you so very much, Reverend Osondo Aherika, for coming on Centerpoint.
It was a pleasure being with you, Ayara. Thank you very much.
We've sure never taken your availability for granted, and today's was really one we would for long cherish. When we called you just at the nick of time, you're here. Thank you so very much to you, and thank you for all the ethical and attitudinal reorientation commission is doing to adequately and sufficiently empower our people with the right thought pattern and processes that will help build the new Akwa Ibom we're looking forward to. Okay, thank you so very much. Thank you, my viewer. That's where we will draw the curtains on Centerpoint AM45. I trust that from the newspaper segment all the way to the state of the polity, you have been informed, you've been educated, and you've been entertained. Till next week, Wednesday, when Centerpoint returns, I hope you will continue to stick to your ultimate in television broadcasting, where we will not stop where we will stop at nothing in ensuring you have the best of all that is required to keep you informed, educated, and entertained all day long. Many thanks to my producer Okon David and Cohen Call Mercy and Care. For the rest of the day, I trust that we will continue to enjoy your companionship, and it will never stop, as we trust that you will do the best you can to make Akwa Ibom the heaven we all yearn and look forward to. Thank you for being a part of today's broadcast, and have a pleasant day. Bye-bye.